You don't need an entire gym's worth of equipment in order to get a good strength training workout. In fact, you can just use some tubing at home, at the park, at the office, wherever you might be, and get a good strength training workout. I'm your fitness coach, Carl, and this is Tubing 101. So when we're talking about tubing, I'm talking about these tubes with the handles. I've got two varieties here. This is the traditional one you've probably seen more of. It's just a single tube with a plastic handle attachment. I really like these. They're inexpensive. You can find them, on Amazon, at Walmart or Target, or your Dick's, whatever your sporting goods store is. So I use Spry tubing. I've done some work with Spry, and that's why I buy their equipment. It's good quality, and I really like the company. The other tubing that I'm using is also from Spry, and this is their braided tubing. I really like this because the resistance is heavier, but still very smooth. Sometimes a heavy single tube gets real heavy real quickly, but because these are 4 smaller tubes, it just feels a little smoother. The handles are also pretty plush. I really like that. And the biggest benefit with these is they are durable. I've had one tube that's over 5 years old that I've used consistently with clients indoors and out, and it has lasted, and that's because I've taken good care of it. And I'm going to share some tips at the end so you can take care of your tubes so they'll last you as well. So let's talk about how to use these for strength training. So I want to talk about the stretch as well as, kind of lowering yourself back down. So I'm going to stand up here and give you your first tip for longevity, which is actually not to stand on concrete with your tube. So I'm going to put my exercise mat down just so I'm not grinding my tube into the concrete. Right? These things, while they're not super expensive, are also not free, and you want them to last. So if I'm going to challenge my biceps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on my tubing here. Now this is Spry's Green Tube Level 2, and that just has a specific resistance. So as I curl up, my biceps are bending my elbows and they're pulling against the tube. And then as I come down, my arms want to just drop, right? But my biceps are also lowering down slowly. So I really like the tube because it gives you good concentric and eccentric strength training. And it's really that eccentric strength training that gives you that big soreness. Think about, going downhill on a hike. Your quads get sore when you go downhill. That's because they're applying a braking force. And that's what's happening as I'm coming down. Now, if I want to decrease the resistance on this biceps curl, what could I do? Well, I could allow the tube to stretch just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do there is just take one foot and put it in the middle. And then as I bend, oh yeah, that's a little bit easier. So if this was too much resistance with my tube, I could take that down. Now, what if it's too little? Well, I can just stretch the tube tighter. So I can bend over and bring my feet a little bit wider. So as I stand up now, the tube is already taut. Now when I bend my elbows, oh yeah, the tube is stretching even more as I pull, so that is more difficult. So you can vary your resistance even with one tube. Now biceps curls are a really no-brainer exercise with the tubing. I especially like it with the braided tubing again because it does feel a little bit more durable, especially under the feet. Now, with the lighter tubing, a lot of the stuff that I like to do is more single joint movements, things like back flies, right, where I'm working the muscles in between my shoulder blades. This is perfect for people who have rounding in their shoulders, right? Anybody who works at a desk. We can also do things for the rotator cuff, right? Easy peasy. But the idea is that if we have too tight of a tube for this, we're working too hard. So maybe the braided tubing might not be appropriate for that. And that's why I also use the single tubing. And the green tubing across the board from Spry is going to be kind of their level 2. They go yellow, green, red, blue, and then purple. And some tubing actually comes in black, which is heavier. But your resistances may vary if you have a different branding. So one other piece of equipment that I want to talk about today is the anchor. So this is my anchor, and really all it is it's a doorway stop. So this is a foam pad around a little plastic piece. So this is going to protect the door. So I usually use these on an interior door, like if I'm going to be trying to anchor something into, the bedroom door or something like that. And what I mean by that is I'm going to slide my tube through this little loop, and when this closes in the door, then I can either grab one handle or I can grab both handles and I can pull, and this isn't gonna move. Now, safety tip number one, when we're doing this, we wanna make sure that the door is closing this way against the jamb, right? You don't wanna be pulling the other way. You could engage the deadbolt and that would hold it secure, but safety first, always make sure you're pulling the door into the jamb, not away from the jamb. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take my little foam piece, I'm gonna open the door, and I'm just gonna slide this through and then close it. And hey, look, I can pull on this and it's nice and secure. It's pulling against the door jamb. So I'm not going to put any pressure against the door itself. Now to use that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my tubing and just put it through the loop. And now I have a secure anchor. Now if you have a pole that's really secure, say you've got like a metal fence post that's concrete anchored into the ground, you could wrap your tube around that. You wouldn't want to use like a wooden post because that could fray your tubing, right? That's going to cut down on the longevity of your tubing. So I really like the anchor. It keeps you safe and secure and allows you to do bilateral exercises like a row. It allows you to support yourself to do exercises like squats. I can turn around and I can do exercises, grab my handles, exercises like chest press, right? I can even come out and I can do flies. I don't love the fly with a single anchor, but it does work, right? But I can also do unilateral exercises with one side. So what I would do then is I would slide my tube through that handle and just go ahead and pull that anchor. Now I've actually got a step farther away. So here is where I could do things, for my rotator cuff, for my back. I could do tube twists and chops, single arm presses. I can do triceps extensions. I can do biceps curls. There's all sorts of exercises that this opens you up for. So just with one piece of tubing and a $10 anchor in the door, I've got myself basically a cable cross machine. And you can even use, two of these, right? And you could hook them up if you have doors on the other side, or you can use the tubing around two poles if you're at the park and have like the playground. Get creative with this. Where can you anchor it? And how can you cut down on the type of, or the amount of equipment that you need in order to get a good workout? You can see for very inexpensive and no space, we are able to get a great strength training workout. And this stuff can be difficult. You just have to pay attention to your form and your tempo. Now I said I would give you a few tips on keeping your tubing, for a long time, giving it good longevity. And the first one I talked about is not grinding it into the ground. So if you are doing something like a biceps curl or something like a lateral raise, say you're standing on the light tubing and going here, or coming up in front for the deltoids, doing any of these types of movements, make sure you're not grinding it into the wood chips or into the concrete. So stand on something soft. Yoga mat works great. Carpet is always a good idea. Same thing if you've got your shoes on, make sure that you don't have like a bunch of gravel in your shoe or something like that. It can just make your tubing last longer. Same thing, anything you wrap it around, if you're gonna wrap it around a wooden post, you're gonna cut down on the life of your tube. The tubing shouldn't mark up anything, right? Same thing with the door anchor. I use this all the time, my trim doesn't get marked up. But make sure that you're anchoring it in properly and pulling it against the door jamb. Now, to keep your tubes to last a long time, just store them properly. Don't just toss them on the floor where they'll get stepped on and tripped on and things like that. You can either hang them up. They work really well on a hook where you can easily use them, or you can roll them up and store them in your gym bag, right? Just make sure that you've got easy access to your tubing so you don't have, anything blocking your way of getting your good workout at home, at the park, wherever you happen to be. I'm your fitness coach, Carl, and this has been Tubing 101.